My name is John. This is the XONIKZ channel, or XONIKZ Independent Industries if you're on the Discord. And welcome to my basement. Part of the ongoing project this week has been prepping the basement foundation for tuck pointing. And behind me you can see one of the walls of the basement. This is a rubble, stone, and brick foundation basement in a 115-year-old farmhouse. Over the course of the spare time that I had this week, I came down here, used an angle grinder, and took off as much of the old and sandy grout as I could, essentially the mortar, as it has not been repaired probably since the foundation was originally set in place. So lots of it was pretty sandy and falling apart, and if you've never seen this done before, and you're like, what are you doing? If you leave grout for a long enough period of time, say 50, 60 years, and there's any moisture at all near it, it eventually wakes up that moisture and will start deteriorating or eroding. And when it does that, it loses its cohesive integrity. In other words, it starts falling apart. And when it's the foundation of your house, you really don't want it to fall apart. With any sense of longevity here, I really wanted this house to last another 40 years at least. So with that in mind, you can fix or repair the falling apart foundations. If you get to them before they actually start falling apart, you can grind back the surface layer of, or you used to chisel it away, but it's just easier to grind it. Chisel away the surface layer of mortar there, usually about a ½ inch or a ¼ inch in below or above each layer of bricks, and then pack new mortar into that ½ inch gap. And that new mortar will bind to the old mortar, and it'll solidify that front face to allow less moisture in, but it'll also add strength to that brickwork and keep it lasting for another hopefully 30 or 40 years if you do it right. So if you do a patch job where you just come kind of in and pick a few spots that are the most deteriorated and just fill those spots in, it can be less expensive as far as material costs go, but it really won't last as long. So that's something you see done in a position where somebody just needed a quick patch and they need just like part of the wall to be fixed. So they'll come in and just do a quick patch like that where they just fill in part of the wall. I could have done that in this instance. There wasn't a lot of deterioration on this part of the wall because this is inside on both edges, like both sides of this wall are technically underground or inside. But I just knew that down the line I wouldn't want to have to deal with it as I got older, and so I want to do it now while I've got the strength and time. So I figured I'd just get it done, and it should last us another 40 years, and if we're not living here in 40 years time, it'll last for the next buyer and add value to the house because it'll be a solid foundation for a long time to come. So that's the goal. And so when you're looking to get your mortar ready for putting it up on the wall, making it a couple different consistencies, but I used to make it really hard and really dry. But the guy I was working with said that isn't actually helpful because it takes more effort to put it into the space, and it also doesn't adhere to the previous grout very well. So I now make it a really wet, sloppy mixture and kind of slop it in there. It looks weird to me, but it dries solidly, and it should be okay. And I'll add some excess sealant and stuff like that eventually with a rush-on solution I've got. look down to read the comments, so give me a second. Looked up tuck pointing on Wikipedia. It is making brickwork look pretty by creating these lines between. Is that correct? It's partially true. Tuck pointing is used to refinish the mortar or the grout between the mortar, or between the bricks rather. But it's also there to add structural stability to the bricks over the long term, because the polymer in the mortar mix will adhere to the existing decaying mortar and make it stronger, so it'll last for a longer period of time. When doing it in something like this situation, any of this excess that's sticking up like beyond the groove here, I was trying to show you what this is kind of look like down the line. You'll end up using a tool, something like this, and it'll have an edge on it that's rounded. If you were to do this for making it pretty, you come back through and run these along the edges, just along the edge where the grout line is, essentially. Kind of bring it through here and down here, and the whole point here is to press it into that groove as much as you possibly can. Right, and then take a brush, or actually what you probably want to do is take a trowel like this and scrape off any of the excess, anything sticking off. And I'll do this when I get done with it, but scrape it off the edge. I'll just do this one that I referenced real quickly. And then once you've done that, take a brush to it. Kind of smooths it out. You'll notice that it's not really pretty. There's a lot of like excess beyond the grout line that gets up on the brick as well. So after this dries, this will turn white. And if you wanted to make it pretty, and didn't want to have all this white excess stuff all over it, like is you can take a 1 to 10 mixture of acetone to water, not acetone, muriatic acid to water, and brush it onto the surface, and then use a sponge brush with the ammonia mixture, so again kind of 50-50 ammonia water, to come back over and wipe off that acid. The acid will eat away at the surface layer of mortar mix to clean it off the brick, make it nice and red to white in this case, and then the ammonia neutralizes the acid, so it'll fix without breaking down further into the brick. It's a great way to kind of come back and do a really quick cleanup job, but you should do it after the mortar has dried. I won't be making this mortar look super pretty because it's inside, and this wall won't be seen in the future because there's going to be some insulation layers and stuff on it. But yeah, that's what it's for. I'm just adding a little bit of water here to the bottom so that I can smooth out this mortar that dropped, and use the material that's already there, kind of fill in some of the gaps and holes on this bottom edge. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I guess it doesn't matter. This is important to get this finished up. So this is what the guys who do like professional work do. They cover the bricks as well as the edges of the mortar because they're not trying to make it look pretty. They're trying to make it look, or they're trying to make it solid and watertight. I'm only going to do it on this bottom portion though, because I don't want to have this be the look. Well,